There is a level of discipline that looks like a mental illness to the uninitiated. Most people call it consistency. They are wrong. It is a haunting. It is a relentless, quiet violence directed at one's own weakness. This isn't about waking up early or hitting the gym. This isn't normal. This is the eradication of the self that bargains. Think of the person you fear competing against, the one who doesn't need a good day to perform, the one who has removed the word try from their internal vocabulary. While you were debating with your alarm clock, they have already won. While you were looking for a reason to start, they have already finished. They have moved beyond motivation into a state of mechanical inevitability. Today we peel back the skin. We look at the architecture of a soul that has been hardened into a weapon. I am going to show you how to kill the person you currently are. This is a promise of total transformation. But be warned, this isn't for everyone. Raphael lived in the loop. You know the loop. It begins on Sunday night with a surge of artificial adrenaline. A vow. This week will be different. This time the diet holds. This time the deep work happens. This time the distraction dies. Monday arrives and for 12 hours he is a god of productivity. He feels the weight of his potential. He is finally becoming the man in the mirror. Then Tuesday leans in, a poor night's sleep, a stressful email, a slight friction in the plan. By Wednesday the intensity is leaked out of him like air from a punctured tire. Thursday is a blur of I'll catch up tomorrow. By Friday he is negotiating with his own failure. He tells himself that rest is productive, while secretly knowing he hasn't earned it. Saturday is a funeral for his ambitions. Sunday is the resurrection of a lie. He spent years in this cycle. He bought the journals. He watched the speeches. He optimized his morning routine down to the millisecond. Yet, he remained a passenger in his own life. He blamed his environment. He blamed his biology. He blamed his lack of willpower. But Raphael was starting to see the cracks in the logic. He realized that willpower is a battery that drains, and he was trying to light a city with a flashlight. He wasn't weak. He was fighting something he didn't understand. He was a warrior trying to win a war using the enemy's map. Raphael stopped looking for tips and started looking for a lineage. He found it in the concept of Ketsui, the irreversible commitment. In the ancient world, a warrior did not decide to enter the fray. They had already decided the moment they stepped onto the path. The problem with modern discipline is that it is built on a foundation of exit ramps. We leave ourselves 1,000 ways out, then wonder why we take them. No longer will avoid the subject of misconception. Even more proud of you. The secret of the system is the transition from behavior to identity witnessed by the void. In the Zen monasteries, the bell does not ask if the monk is tired. The bell rings, and the body moves. There is no space between the stimulus and the response for a self to intervene and complain. This is the shift from a reversible commitment, one based on feelings, to an irreversible one, one based on the soul. To become the warrior who trains beyond human limits, Raphael had to perform a public execution of his old options. In the old systems, a student would make a declaration. Not a goal but an oath. An oath is different because it involves the ego's destruction if broken. When you make a commitment that is witnessed, you are no longer fighting your laziness. You are fighting for your right to exist as the person you claim to be. This is the architecture of the already decided. Most people spend 80% of their mental energy every day in a state of negotiation. Should I work out now or later? Should I eat this or that? Is today a rest day? The elite mind has zero negotiations. They don't decide to get up at 4 a.m. every morning. They have already decided months or years ago, and today is simply the mechanical execution of that decree. They don't decide, they have already decided. When you move from the realm of choice to the realm of law, the friction vanishes. You stop being a person who is trying to be disciplined, and you become the discipline itself. It is a ritualized existence, practiced for centuries by those who knew that the human mind is a treacherous advisor. You cannot trust the man you are at 6 a.m. to make decisions with the man you want to be in 10 years. You must build a system that treats your excuses as background noise, meaningless static in the face of a mountain. The shift to identity doesn't mean the ghost in the machine goes quiet. It means you stop listening to its screams. For Raphael, the first phase of this new life felt like a physical assault. Your biology is a prehistoric relic. It doesn't care about your legacy. It only cares about your survival. To your brain, comfort is safety and effort is a threat to your caloric reserves. Every morning, the negotiation begins in the dark. It is a visceral, oily voice that whispers in the language of logic. It doesn't tell you to quit forever. It tells you to negotiate for today. It points out the heaviness in your limbs, the slight ache in your joints, the cold air outside the sheets. This is the friction of the old self trying to reclaim its territory. It is the internal war where your amygdala, the ancient fearful part of your brain, clashes with the prefrontal cortex, the architect of your future. Raphael felt this as a physical weight in his chest. On the third week, the fatigue wasn't just meant Raphael. His mind tried to use his own intelligence against him. It created elaborate reasons why overtraining was a risk, or why strategic recovery was necessary. This is the moment most people fail. They mistake the sound of their resistance for the sound of their intuition. But the warrior knows that resistance is the fuel. Without friction, there is no heat. Without heat, the metal cannot be forged. Raphael began to view this mental as a great story was the terrible back wall. He stopped trying to make the feeling go away. If the voice screamed stop, he knew he was finally moving in the right direction. He established fixed, non-negotiable windows of time where his autonomy was surrendered to the system. Between the hours of 5 and 9, Raphael was no longer a human being with opinions. He was a biological machine executing a program. He watched his own resistance like a scientist observing a chemical reaction. He felt the fire, but he refused to be the fuel. It was a partial victory, not a solution. The war never ends, you just get better at winning the battles. The world will tell you that variety is the spice of life. The world is wrong. For the warrior, variety is a leak in the pressurized chamber of progress. Raphael realized that the what should I do question was a toxin. When you have 10 options, you have 10 opportunities to choose the easiest one. To train beyond human limits, you must narrow the path until there is only one way forward. One sequence, one timing, one outcome. This is the destruction of the illusion of choice. Raphael stopped looking for new workouts, new productivity hacks, or new inspirations. He embraced the boring. He understood that excellence is not a series of peaks, but a fat, endless plateau of repetitive action. He wore the same clothes. He ate the same fuel. He followed the same sequence of movements with the precision of a clock. His friends started to notice. They called his lifestyle extreme. They told him he was missing out on life. They mocked his rigidity, calling it an obsession. They worried he was losing his spontaneity. In the beginning, the social pressure hurt. But then, he realized the truth. Their concern was actually a confession of their own lack of boundaries. People mock what they cannot emulate. They call you annoying because your consistency is a mirror that reflects their own instability. In this system, annoying is a feature, not a bug. If you are not making the people around you slightly uncomfortable with your dedication, you are probably still playing by their rules. You are still trying to be balanced. But there is no balance at the edge of human potential. There is only the obsession. The rulebook became his only friend. It didn't care if it was raining, it didn't care if it was his birthday, it didn't care if he was burnt out. The rulebook said, at 5:00 we begin, at 9:00 we finish. By removing the burden of choice, he liberated his mind. He no longer had to think, because the path was already paved in stone. While others were wasting their cognitive energy deciding which direction to walk, Raphael was already miles down the only road that existed. He became a dogmatist of the daily grind, a monk of the mundane, finding a terrifying power in the absolute absence of alternatives. There is a concept in the ancient traditions called guji. It means continuous practice without gaps. Most people treat discipline like a flickering light bulb, on when they feel motivated, off when they are tired. They live in a state of constant restarting. They build momentum for 3 days, then let the fire die on the 4th, unaware that it takes 10 times the energy to reignite a cold engine than it does to keep a hot one running. Raphael stopped believing in the concept of taking a break from his identity. To the warrior, there is no off-season. There is no weekend where the standards are lowered. This doesn't mean you never rest. It means your rest is part of the discipline, not a departure from it. A river does not stop being a river because it hits a calm pool. It continues its movement. Even in the stillness, the moment the water stops moving, it becomes a swamp. The moment it stops, it dies. He began to view his life as a single, unbroken line of intent. If he was eating for the mission. If he was sleeping to repair the weapon. He removed the gaps, where the old self used to crawl back in, those small windows of mindless scrolling or indecisive lounging. He realized that a gap of 5 minutes is enough for the virus of hesitation to infect the system. He moved through his day like a blade through silk. When the task changed, the intensity remained. He treated the smallest habits with the same reverence as his greatest challenges. To Raphael, how he tied his shoes was how he fought his wars. There was no small stuff. By closing every gap, he achieved a state of psychological flow that regular people find frightening. He was no longer pushing himself. He was being pulled by the current of his own momentum. He was the river, and the mountain had no choice but to give way. The amateur prepares for the battle. The warrior prepares for the variables. Raphael understood that the greatest threat to his discipline wasn't a lack of desire, but the friction of the unexpected. In the world of neuroscience, this is known as decision fatigue. Every time you are forced to make a choice. What do I do now that it's raining? How do I work out since the gym is closed? You leak cognitive glucose. By the time you reach the work, your executive function is bankrupt. To train beyond human limits, Raphael implemented a system of pre-solutions. This is a strategic, military-grade logic applied to the mundane. He mapped out every possible failure point in his week and applied an if-then protocol to it. If I am traveling and there is no gym, then I perform 500 burpees in the hotel room at 0600. If a project runs late and I miss my dinner window, then I fast until the next morning without complaint. If the internal voice says I'm tired, then I immediately perform 10 seconds of cold exposure to reset the nervous system. There is no discussion. The answer already exists. This is monastery of the mind. In elite systems, you don't find people wondering what to do when things go wrong. They have already lived through the failure in their mind and pre-installed the correction. Raphael stopped being a victim of circumstance and became an architect of outcomes. He removed the need for inspiration by automating his resilience. He looked at his life through the lens of cause and effect. He realized that most people fail because they treat life as a series of surprises. Raphael treated it as a series of predictable triggers. By pre-solving his obstacles, he effectively deleted the stress response from his daily routine. While others were panicking because their plans were disrupted, Raphael was simply switching to Protocol B. This level of preparation creates a terrifying calmness. When you know that no external event can derail your internal standard, you become untouchable. You are trying to stay on track. You have built a track that accounts for the earthquake. He stopped negotiating with reality and started dictating it. The neuroscience is simple. By reducing the number of active decisions, he preserved his prefrontal cortex for the only thing that mattered, the work. He became a biological machine that had accounted for every bug in the software. He didn't need to be strong in the moment, because he had been strategic in the silence. The man who started this journey is dead. Raphael looked in the mirror and realized he no longer recognized the person who used to bargain with the morning. The soft edges of his character had been planed away, leaving something cold, dense, and functional. He had achieved the ultimate state. His habits were no longer something he did, they were what he was. This is the mythic rebirth. You do not get to keep your old life and your new potential. One must be sacrificed for the other. Raphael moved with a different gravity now. His presence felt heavy. When he entered a room, people didn't see a man who was trying hard. They saw a man who had removed the possibility of failure from his DNA. He didn't seek approval anymore, because he had become his own highest authority. The discomfort of others became his signal of success. When people said he had changed, he took it as a compliment. When they said he was too intense, he knew he was finally operating at the correct frequency. The isolation wasn't lonely, it was clean. He had crossed the threshold where discipline stops being a struggle and starts being a sanctuary. He doesn't do it anymore. He is it. Now, the initiation is yours. This is the moment where the video ends and your irreversible commitment begins. If you are ready to kill the person you've been, you must declare it, not to me, but to the void. Leave your oath in the comments. Not a goal, not a wish, an oath. Write the one thing you will never negotiate on again. Let this be the digital witness to your transformation. The warrior doesn't wait for permission. The warrior begins. Your old life is over. Welcome to the path.